Hello, and welcome to Crew Call, the Below the Line podcast by, for, and about the crew. Today's guest is a production supervisor and recently a co-producer, Kelley Sims. Unfortunately, I was unavailable to record this interview, but producer Chris stepped in for me. This episode is brought to you by CAPS Payroll. They're not just for background anymore. Now, I'll let Chris take it away.
Let's get right into it. We have with us here Kelley Sims, who is currently a production supervisor and a co-producer. So, Kelley, how's it going?
Great. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. And first question, when did you get started in the entertainment business?
Professionally, I would say 1998.
1998, all right.
Yeah.
And what was your first gig? How'd you break in?
Well, let's go back. I would say 1996.
Okay.
I was a set PA. I can't really remember what it was. I started off as an actor, so I really was an extra, and then was like a featured extra, and then I was a stand-in, and then I would do PA work, just various, whether it was like CBS Movies of the Week or like small features, and then I would PA some TV commercials. And then I really started working full-time, I would say in 98, when I started to go behind the scenes more and into the accounting department.
Okay, so you start as an actor and then moved into being a PA and then moved into accounting from that. Now, was that in Los Angeles that you started?
No, I went to school in London and then New York for drama. And then I moved to North Carolina in 1994. To get my SAG card for the Screen Actors Guild. And so I was only supposed to be there for 3 months, and I ended up being there for almost 8 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so there's a lot of work there.
So how did you get into accounting from production assisting?
I mean, well, it's kind of a story I probably can't really say. But I was hanging out with a friend one summer, and we were hanging out, and we were like, let's just say we were drinking. And I was like, we have to get I want to get a job on one of the movies. And so we literally stepped by one of the offices looking for work. And they thought I was an actor looking for per diem. And I ended up working in accounting as a clerk. And so I would do that during the day, and then I would wait tables at night.
Okay.
And then I eventually didn't even finish that job, and I went on to another one and moved up. And then I did another movie and moved up, and then I did another movie and moved up.
All right. Did you have any accounting experience?
No, I have no college degree. I have no accounting experience. I just pretended to be one.
And evidently figured it out fast enough that no one noticed.
Well, or really what it is, the way production works is you're really trained. If you really want to learn something and you're hungry and you're ambitious, you're going to learn it, whether they teach you or you find it on your own. So if you're a quick learner and you really want to learn your field, then, anyone can do it as long as, you're ambitious and put your heart and soul to it.
So you're sort of allowed to learn.
Oh, yeah. I'd rather be paid to learn than me to pay somebody to teach me.
I totally understand. So from that first accounting gig, then, how did you get from that to being a production supervisor?
Oh, wow. Well, we'd have to fast forward from 1998 until 2013.
Oh, wow.
So
okay.
Off and on, I've done 48 projects now, so 48 films, and I've traveled the world. So what happened was, because I was getting job offers in different countries, I basically saw the world for free, and it just became addictive. And so I probably stayed in accounting longer than I wanted to, but it's also job security. And I learned a lot about, what to do, what not to do, and, budget schedules. And then I eventually got a call from Sycamore Pictures to do a movie for them in Atlanta, which happens to be one of Robin Williams' last films. And that was my first supervising job. And so I've supervised 2 other movies since then and co-produced the one I just got off of.
Okay, so this is a fairly recent change for you then.
Yeah, it's been a change, but there's one section I'm missing is that I actually used to work for Morgan Freeman in 2006 as a manager of production for almost 3 years.
Okay.
Because I wanted to sit down. I didn't want to freelance anymore.
Going back to accounting a little bit, it's something I'd wager that especially people starting out, they don't really know a whole lot about. So, there's more than one kind of accountant, right?
Correct. There's different positions. There's the lead accountant, which is the true accountant of the show. And then you have the first assistant person, and then you have a payroll person, and then sometimes you have a second and you have a clerk. And basically what it really is all data processors is really what they are. You don't have to be a CPA to do what they do, but it helps, obviously. Usually a CPA is someone who knows how to do taxes and file your taxes, but like that's not what we do. We basically just, gather the information and put it into what we call a cost report. So when you have a locked budget, all the information, whether it's from an invoice or from a payroll by paying someone, it goes into a software like, for instance, I use CAPS a lot, a payroll company, and they have a software called CPAS. And so we enter all that information into their software, and they also do our payroll.
Okay, so the software is something that sort of takes all of your costs and stuff like that and helps you figure out like where the money's supposed to go. Is that
correct? Like you have a
Okay.
locked budget, you put in the system, and then you put them, the numbers that go to the code, and then that goes against the locked budget, and then you either go under or over, or you hit the number and you try to project before you go over.
All right, cool. So what you've used the term locked budget a couple of times. What is that?
Okay, let's say for instance, you have set dressing for a movie, and the budget comes in at $5,000 all in for purchases and rentals. By the time we go into shooting, you normally lock your budget a day before you start shooting. So with the production designer, the set dresser, and the line producer, you will come to an agreement of saying, okay, this is your budget number. It is $5,000. And you lock that number. So when you start shooting and they start spending, then you have to stay within that $5,000, or they can come under, say like $500. So you would have $500 in savings, or you go $500 over, then that's an overage because you lock the number at $5,000.
Okay, so a locked budget is essentially your planned target.
Correct. And then of course there's hundreds and hundreds of more that make up the whole movie with every department, including, producer fees, cast, post numbers with editors and deliverables, all kinds of departments.
Right, which is how you end up at those numbers in the, millions of dollars.
Correct. Or, hundreds of thousands if you're starting off.
So as an accountant, do you have input into the budget, or does that information just come to you and you have to handle it?
Well, no, sometimes what happens is once the accountant is hired, the line producer or the UPM has, done what they want to do with the budget, and then they hand it off to the accountant to kind of double check their work or double check to see like a checks and balance. So for instance, the fringes, which are like the employer taxes and also the union pension and health fringes, you have to make sure that you have the right percentage. And sometimes the line producers, UPM, depending on how strong they are or how well versed they are in contracts, they will sometimes miss things, and you could be under budget when you go lost into your budget, and then when you're in the middle of shooting, you realize your fringes you're going to go over the fringes because someone didn't do the correct percentages. Like say, like every state has, employer taxes that you have to pay, like SUI, FUI, FICA, workers' comp, fringes. And so every state has different percentages. So depending on where you're budgeting and where you're shooting, the line producer usually has the template of having to set it up in the budget. But when the accountant comes along, we just make sure that we double check that their work is correct and that they're not under fringing. So when you're in the middle of shooting and you have hundreds of thousands of dollars of fringes, say for instance, if you're off by a percentage, then that can cost you like $20,000 to $50,000, and that can go into what is called the contingency, which you really don't want fringes to go into the contingency. You'd rather have something that's going to go on the screen go into the contingency, not labor.
And what exactly are fringes? What is that term specifically?
Fringes are like employer taxes, like when you pay workers' comp, FICA, SUI, and then you also have to pay for the union rules. You have to pay the pension, health, and welfare, whether it's CGA, SAG, IATSE, or Teamsters.
Okay, so they're sort of like I guess that makes sense now. They're the fringe expenses that happen as a result of other expenses, in a way. Yes?
Correct. Like if I hire you and you're an IATSE member and I'm paying you $500 a week, I have to pay you a certain percentage based off your $500 a week, or even hours worked. And then that's where the payroll comes in. So basically the reason that we hire payroll companies is they're the third party. They basically pay all the contributions to all the unions based off of what we turn in on time cards and hours and pay rate. And then in turn, they invoice us and we pay them back.
Okay, so for you, it's just one lump payment, and then the payroll company knows who to dole out how much and when, that sort of thing.
Yeah, like for instance, we'll probably, normally you have to do a deposit for the IA or the TGA, and you give the payroll company the deposits, and then they vouch for the company saying, yes, this company has paid, these deposits. Same thing with SAG. We have to pay a SAG bond, to cover their actors. So that all goes to the payroll company, and the payroll company signs all the contracts with us, deposit agreements, so that it lets you know that we have done our due diligence and have paid because we have the money in the bank. And then every week we turn in time cards for, depending on whether it's a DGA member, a SAG member, or IATSE member, or Teamster, they will separate those and pay based off what we're paying them. And then they will pay contributions to everyone's, health and welfare, fund. So for instance, DGA would go into one fund, SAG goes into another fund, IATSE goes into one fund. Like, for instance, if you're LA-based, we're more than likely, our fund is the motion picture. Whereas if you're outside of LA, everyone goes into what's called a national fund.
Cool. And so this is something I've never known, actually. Let's say there's a 2-month shoot or something. Are actors and crew getting paid continuously throughout that? Are they paid at the beginning? Are they paid at the end? How does that work?
Yes, you have to. You have to pay them. In the contracts, we all have, there's different contracts. SAG is the same contract, but they have different ones like low budget, diversity, and basic agreements.
Okay.
Same with IATSE, we have the low budget tiers. And in those contracts, we have to pay them, usually for IA, you have to pay them by Friday every week, one week in arrear. So if you work in your current week today, and you turn in your time card to me tomorrow for that week, you will get paid the following Friday.
So that's pretty standard stuff, just like most jobs.
For film business, it is, but in the real world, people are usually paid bi-weekly or monthly. But in the film business, we pay because we're freelancers.
Pay every week.
Yeah.
All right. A little bit of a switch here.
Sure.
How early in the production process does the accounting department come in?
Well, we're the first to come on and we're the last to leave. So say, for instance, you hire me today, and it depends on the prep time. Mm-hmm. We're either going to be 4 weeks out, 3 weeks out, 8 weeks out, and then you start shooting. So I'm basically there from the very beginning of prep. And then when we finish shooting, I usually have 2 to 4 weeks of wrap, depending on the size of the show. So, for instance, if I was a grip, if I was a company grip, I would only probably prep one day and then shoot, and then I may have 1 day of wrap. Whereas the accountant is there like 3 to 4 months.
Because you've got to handle all of the budgetary concerns and payroll and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's really exciting.
It sounds like it. It's one of those things for me, like, I'm glad other people are good at it because I wouldn't be able to handle it. That's why I play with microphones instead.
Right. You're more of a creative side brain. Where some people are more type A personality who want to be organized. They
handle order quite nicely.
Correct. And then there's some people who can do both.
Right. And they tend to be incredibly wealthy.
Or they try at least to be.
Right.
It takes a while
Exactly. So when it comes to payroll, and it sounds like that's something that typically gets farmed out to an external company.
Yes.
Is there any great difference between how they operate and what they do, or is it more relationship based and they all kind of do the same thing?
It's relationship based, but it's also customer service based, and it's also what kind of deal you can get with their fringe rate. Now, granted, no payroll company can change the federal, the FICA or the FUI or the SUI for the state, but really where they can, you can kind of try to make a deal is the workers' comp. Because they have to carry their own workers' comp insurance.
Okay.
And there's a difference. So, if you and I go and we're going to go make a movie, we obviously have to have production insurance. And that would cover various things, whether it's like a guest that comes to your set, or if it's for, the trucks that you rent, or video equipment that you rent, from a Steadicam person, or a video assist person, or a sound person. That's totally different kind of insurance.
Okay.
So workers' comp is when your people are on set, and they're being paid to the payroll company and they get hurt. That's when workers' comp comes into effect. And that goes to your payroll company because they have a workers' comp division. And so that is part of your fringes. So workers' comp rate, sometimes the payroll company can, and sometimes they will, they may not admit to it, but they can, they can buffer that workers' comp percentage. So say, for instance, I go to payroll company A, and they're charging me, 5%, and then I go to payroll company B, and they're going, oh, we're going to give you 4.5%. Then obviously I'm more than likely going to go to payroll company B unless I really like payroll company A, and I say, hey, match this rate. And if they do, then I'll stick with the company that I like.
So it's about the rates you can get and sort of the extra services they might be able to provide surrounding that.
Yeah, it's a combination, but it also is, a part of the accountant's job is not only to make sure that you don't go over along with the line producer. That's why they call them the line producer, because you're watching the line, which is the budget.
Okay.
But it's also my job to also try to find money to save so we can put the money on the screen as opposed to, on paper.
So being an accountant, then, do you interact, would you say, with cast and crew more or executive type folks more?
It really it varies. It depends on who you are as an accountant. Like some accountants really want to go to set and they want to meet everybody and they want to talk to everybody, whereas some accountants just want to stay in the office and they'll come out like once a week when they do the cost report. It just depends. Okay. Accountants usually deal with the line producers and producers. And then, then their staff will deal with the crew. So, for instance, if someone needs to pay the cash, that will go to the person who's handling kind of cash. That's not the accountant. If someone needs their per diem, then that goes to the staff, not to the accountant. So the only time that I would really talk to the crew is if they happen to see me and they think of money going, oh, yeah. That's why I never stay in the same hotel as the crew, because if they see me, they're going to ask me money questions.
You don't want to be available 24/7 for people wondering when or how much they will be paid.
Correct. Because I do that, during business hours.
Right. I mean, have you ever had anything crazy happen in that respect? Any time you went down to set just real quick?
Yeah, there was one time I was in the Dominican Republic and I was a first assistant accountant. And, with all due respect to the Dominican Republic, it's a third world country. But we did have a gentleman come in looking for money with a shotgun and would not leave until he got paid. And so that was an interesting thing where we had to lock ourselves into our office.
Was this a crew member or a random person?
It was more of a vendor of like a location.
Okay, but this was someone involved with the production.
Yeah, I mean, vendors, crew, they're all involved with the production. We will continue to use the same vendors, relationships to get deals. But this was just one of those random, vendors that you probably will never see again for the rest of your life because you're in a third world country.
Right. But, and also because he came in asking to be paid with a shotgun.
Yeah. And, he just didn't understand how the process of being paid went, because everybody does business different, obviously. So he wanted cash and, we had no idea that we owed him money because obviously it was a miscommunication with a crew member who was making the deal with the guy. And so he showed up with a shotgun and we were just like, okay. And obviously we paid him because we didn't want to get shot. But I don't think he was really going to do anything. It was more of like a good old boy going, hey, I need my money. And I'm bringing my gun.
Okay, so it wasn't like I'm going to shoot you. It was a little more like it'd be a shame if I had to consider using this.
Yeah, well, we obviously shut the door and waited it out while we had someone could translate to him, what the issue was.
Okay. So I've been told, there's a rumor that certain positions like UPM, line producer, lead accountant, get a bonus if the show comes under budget. Is there any truth to that?
I do not. I think maybe they did that in the old days.
Okay.
In terms of a bonus, the only time that I ever would get what would be considered a bonus is if it would be like one extra week of pay. But it was never anything to do with like the back end of the movie, like, if the movie made money.
Right.
The thing with UPMs and line producers, majority of them are DGA members, Director Guild, so they're going to get residuals anyway. So when the movie makes money, there's a deal with a contract with DGA, but even the first ADs, second ADs, they all get residual checks. Now, are they a lot of money? Most times they're not, unless, obviously they're going to work on probably one of those $150 million, $200 million Marvel movies,
right.
So to speak. But, I mean, I have plenty of DGA friends, but they're not going around going, woohoo, I have a big residual check. But, it's nice to get a check every once in a while that comes in the mail.
If someone wanted to start sending me one, I'd take it.
Right, exactly. But no, I mean, I don't know of anybody who's getting bonuses. And I think if they were, they're probably not telling me. You know what I mean?
Because they don't want you to know that you're not getting one.
Yeah, or just, don't want to be boastful about them.
Right.
The thing about when you work in accounting is you can tell by how someone handles their paperwork, how they handle their money, how they handle their paycheck. I can tell you everybody's personality just by how they do their money.
That's fascinating, actually, because you're right. That's a window into someone's behavior that most people don't have access to.
Exactly. I can tell as soon as someone walks in the door and they ask a question about something or how they want to handle something, I can tell exactly what your personality is.
Do you have any examples that stand out in your mind?
Well, like you can tell when someone's trying to hide something, or or trying to put in fake receipts, or try to be a shyster, so to speak. I don't know if that's a bad word.
I mean, it might be, but I'm not going to bleep it out.
Yeah, it might be. My apologies if it is.
So it sounds like how trustworthy someone is one of the main traits that you can see with all of this too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And we see everything. We see every piece of paperwork. It's not just about how an individual handles their money, but it's also about like their department. Like if there's a lot of loss and damage, or, they don't purchase order something. And when I say purchase order, a purchase order is something that you are telling the production that's coming in, something that's coming in the future. Let's say, for instance, you need to rent a truck. So you don't just wait for the invoice to show up after you've rented the truck. You have to let me know that, hey, I'm going to rent this truck for $500 a week for 4 weeks. So there's going to be $2,000 coming out of this account, as opposed to some people who are like, oh, here's the invoice. And that's called, that's bad business. So that's how you can kind of tell people how they run their business.
It's interesting. And so do you find in film that having a purchase order helps smooth things along with vendors as well? Because they see, oh, you actually have permission from your company to be spending $10,000 here.
Correct. Yes. And also the vendors at this point, especially, in film cities like Los Angeles, New Orleans, Atlanta, Chicago, New York, they know better. They're not going to release any of their supplies or their rentals without getting a purchase order number from the company, because they know how it works. So it really benefits both the vendor and, the client who's paying for it. Because if I have not approved a purchase order and I get an invoice from that vendor, I don't have to pay for it because I didn't approve it. So then you either have a fight ensues or legal matters ensues.
Right.
But at the end of the day, they know what our policy is, and they know they have the same policy either, because it protects both parties.
All right. So I guess speaking of movie production and stuff like that, your current job now, the one you just started about a year ago, production supervisor, what does that entail?
So basically what a supervisor does is they assist the line producer, or the UPM/UPM. So basically basically we work hand in hand together, and the UPM will say, go make the truck rental bill, or go make the craft service bill, or go make the catering bill. And they will go make deals, say, with like other departments, like, they'll make like what are the grips package going to be? What's the electric package going to be? They negotiate the deal, the money.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. So the supervisor basically assists. And then usually, like the worst part about being a supervisor is you have to order second meal, which sucks because, you have to feed people every 6 hours. So the first 6 hours, when at call time, the caterers, they feed people breakfast. And then 6 hours from call, they feed the crew lunch. So then you have the next 6 hours, which means you would have to what's called a second meal. And you have to gauge when that's going to be, because sometimes you don't have to do the second meal.
Right, you might wrap first.
Yeah. So it's kind of a running joke. It's like, okay, who's ordering second meal? And then you have to scramble to try to find, a hot meal from like just a mom and pop business.
Right.
To say, hey, we have 60 crew members. We need this in an hour. And they look at you like, what? So that's kind of what a supervisor does too, as well.
Okay.
And majority of the time, supervisors are usually production coordinators who have moved up in the ranks and want to line produce, so they move up and become supervisors. It's rare that accountants do what I'm doing, because I don't really want to do accounting anymore. I've always wanted to be a producer, so this is my pathway to move up to producing.
Well, that's got to feel cool then, to be like three movies into that path.
Oh yeah, like it's I was hoping it wouldn't take this long, but at the end of the day, it's really been. I mean, it's a lonely road sometimes because I travel so much. Like I've been in 3 different states in the last 9 months, And so, but at the end of the day, I'm making these movies that I can watch and I can go see, and I'm a part of that because eventually I'm a storyteller. Like I want to be a storyteller and I want to produce my own content, but I'm learning from other people, I'm not spending my own money. So it's like I'm trying to learn the ropes before I start to go find my own money to make my own movie. So it's all a blueprint.
That's fantastic. And as you said before, like that's not a path people would normally take to that. But nevertheless, you were still able to find yourself in a position where you're closer to your ultimate goal. Yeah.
Right. It's not normally. Sometimes accountants do move up to UPM, but then they find out they don't like to do it and they want to go back to accountant because doing accounting can be a very comfortable job. Like you can sit in the office and you're still getting paid well and you're getting your benefits. And so some people get used to that, especially people who have families and they don't want to travel. Or they have a partner or a husband or a wife and they want to stay at home. And it's just like, it's basically, that's why they always joke with accountants. They call it banker hours because even though the crew is on set, who's working 14, 16 hours, usually, accounting department will work 10 to 12 and you're in an air conditioning.
Yeah. You're not carrying heavy things under hot lights.
No. But, people choose their department. So, if you're going to choose to pick up lights and stuff, then enjoy doing it.
Ultimately, something inside you likes it, even if you think it's terrible in the moment.
Right, exactly.
So actually, on that note, I feel like you probably have a particularly unique perspective on this. So for people starting out, just in general, let's say they want to be an accountant, or maybe they want to be a producer,
or a production designer, or a costume designer,
or anything. Like, what would be your general advice on not just how to start out, but like how to think of the journey from your first job to the job you want?
Well, unless you obviously, like the old saying goes, unless you're born with a silver spoon in your mouth and someone can pay for you to do it, you either have it or you don't have it. It's like it's the same thing in the music business or like being an actor or being a model or even being like a lawyer or a doctor. You either want to do this or you don't. And if you don't want to do it, then you need to then try something else. But if you will know if this is for you or not immediately. And you just have to network. Like I am a big networker. I've always been a networker all my life, but I've not been a networker where I'm fake about it. Like I'm genuine. I'm a networker because I'm always been hungry for knowledge and I always want, to learn. I'm always learning. Always, always, always. And when people realize that you are ambitious and you want to learn, then they're going to open up and they're also going to, talk about their experiences and their journey. And so really it's a whole big collaboration, to get the story told. So, was accounting my first choice? No. Do I like accounting? Not really. But you know what? It pays my bills. I got to see the world. I've met amazing people. And now I'm at a point in my life where it's like, okay, I've learned that part of filmmaking. I don't need to keep doing this over and over again. Otherwise, I'll resent it and I'll just get out. So now I'm on to something else where it's challenging me and I'm learning. And as long as I'm in the film business, I'm happy. So I would just say, just keep at it and don't give up. As many people that are going into the film business, there's more people dropping out of the film business. And the older you get, the more people are dropping out. And you'll have more opportunity to, grow and to meet people. And I mean, I've met people on an airplane. I've met people at a restaurant, and that's how I've gotten jobs. Yeah. It's just, you never know. And if you don't talk about it, then people won't know.
And you said that you're not just networking, say, for the sake of networking. You're genuine about it. You genuinely want to meet these people and learn from them and make friends with them. Yes. And my guess would be that goes a long way.
Yes. It's not like it's like, say, for instance, that especially in Los Angeles, you know how they are. They're like, they always say that people are fake in Los Angeles. And I always like to say, a lot of people go there to become something. I would suggest if you're coming to LA or New Orleans or Atlanta, you should already know who you are and know what your focus is, because you can really get lost into it. And so what I mean by networking, it means that I have something that I can offer on the table, and I'm hoping someone else can also offer something to me on the table. I'm not going around going, yeah, I'm a producer, I can make the movie, but I don't have any funds to draw from, or I don't have any cast or directors to draw from. because I'm trying to get that along the way. I'm
Right.
trying to grow tools. A lot of people will just network and just say, yeah, I'm a producer, or yeah, I'm an actor. But like, are you really a producer? Are you really an actor? Are you really a director? Like, you have to prove yourself at some point. Like, the light's going to shine on you at some point on stage, and you're going to have to prove yourself.
Right. I remember when I first got to town, I joined a racquetball league. One of the guys asked me, "So what do you do?" I said, "Oh, I like to write." And he goes, "So do you actually write?"
Exactly. What have you written?
And that feels like a very LA kind of question to ask. So speaking of networking, though, you don't seem like a particularly shy kind of person. But some people are. They're nervous about it. Do you have any advice for sort of networking or meeting people for
people
those of us who
are shy about it?
Yeah.
It just depends. You just have to have confidence, and if you don't, then you need to go either. I would suggest to go take an improv course, or go talk to, not that it's a bad thing, but maybe go talk to a psychiatrist about or go take a communication class, or go take a public speaking class.
So
do
really something so that you feel more confident, say, approaching strangers.
Yeah. Yeah, because this is the way I've always looked at the world. It's that whole Shakespeare thing. All the world's a stage. It's what you make out of it. So, like, when we go see a play, if we go to New York or anywhere, we don't know sometimes if the actor has messed up their line or not. If they catch it and they're able to, stumble through it, we probably will never know, unless we know the play obviously by heart,
right,
that they've messed up. So that's how I see life. It's like I go through life going, you know what? I am a producer. I may not be a producer that can finance your movie, but I have enough connections, or I have enough ambition to say, hey, I want to produce this, and I will go try to find it. I can't promise you I can, but give me 6 months, give me a year, give me 2 years to see if I can make this project. So that's what it's all about. Everybody, when you go see a movie, you're there to be entertained. You don't know what to expect. And when you watch it, it becomes believable and you believe it. It's the same thing in life. It's like all the world, it's your stage. It's what you make of it.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to think about it too, because you're the only one who has any idea what your expectations were. So if something's not going the way you thought, nobody else knows that. So you might as well just kind of roll with it.
No, nobody knows that unless you reveal the fourth wall and you let them know and you show them all your cards.
Okay. So then last question. Let's say you're king of Hollywood. What's one thing you would like to be changed? What would you do differently?
What I do differently? I don't know. I mean, what would I do differently? Yeah, I can't really think of anything. I mean, that's a big can of worms, because there's always somebody being mistreated. There's always somebody not being paid correctly, or there's always these movies being made that shouldn't be made. I just wish I wish there were sometimes better scripts, and not so. And I don't really care for the politics, and I think that's probably why I've never really gotten to the studio system, because there's a lot of politics going on. So
you might say, like, if you had your way, just remove politics from the equation more.
Yeah, or I'd move out of Hollywood, move it to somewhere a little more normal, and just work from there, and then fly into LA whenever I have.
If you were the king of Hollywood, you would abdicate and go work somewhere else.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right.
But I love LA. Don't get me wrong. I just, I'm only there because of business.
But all right, cool. Well, we won't keep you too much longer. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this, Kelley. Do you have any last words, final thoughts?
I just say, just stick to your dreams, and it will happen. If it's not happening, then do something else, because otherwise you're just wasting your time. If you feel like you're not making it in that path, then there's a reason for it, and so there's a time and place to where you need to make a change. And I see a lot of people, especially in Hollywood, who are still doing it after 20 years and not really getting where they want to be. It's like, well, maybe you should be doing something else.
Sound advice, I think.
Yeah.
Well, we'll let you go now. But thanks again. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. See you.
That's it for this week. Tune in next week for Emmy-nominated editor Scott Powell.